Back at it with the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, David Lesky from Inside the Crown, former Royals outfielder Les Norman, host of Breaking the Norm. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB as we are talking some Royals baseball here on a Thursday. If you're catching us via the podcast, welcome. You can also be a part of the conversation, be in the chat room. Have your thoughts heard instantaneously in the discussion by joining us live. We stream Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. unless, something's come up or something. But most of the time, you can count on that. Today, we're going to talk about the Royals' new hitting coaching hires. They've added 2 new hitting coaches. Salvy Perez adds a year to his deal or gets a 2-year deal to replace his old deal, however you want to describe it. The Royals get it right there. Noah Cameron, 4th in the AL Rookie of the Year award. I really want to know what we're using to judge this award, why it seems to be the sliding scale. We'll talk about that. The Royals have acquired Mason Black. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. We'll get to what that means. Trade rumors for the Kansas City Royals. Jeff Passan saying Gleyber Torres is the guy for the boys in blue. We'll talk about that as well. It's all coming up right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro. David Lesky is an accomplished author and the publisher of the Inside the Crown Royals baseball newsletter. Les Norman is a former Royals outfielder. He's the host of Breaking the Norm with Les Norman on Sports Radio 810 WHB, as well as the author of Teaching the Tools of Hitting. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro.
All right. Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. First of all, I'm going to ask the chat room because I know the bizarre looks that I'm getting. I forgot to mention one thing to David and Les before we got started. So we put the podcast out on a platform that's called StreamYard, and they're doing what they call upgrading, or what I would call trying to fix what ain't broke. Okay. So and they just heard the open as like an echo, right? Did you hear the echo? Terry, Curtis, I'm curious if the open sounded like it was playing twice, like one time about a quarter second off. Just trying to find out what we're sending out. I know when the podcast goes out, if you're listening on the podcast, you're like, what are you talking about? Sounds fine. I know it sounds fine there. But on the live stream, I'm curious. Did you hear the open? Did you hear Curtis like twice? Curtis says no echo for me. Okay, good. I have solved that. So it just sucks for us, David, Les. We just
it's fine.
When that started, I was like, I know. I mentioned there's some things like what we're seeing is different. And so we were talking about that. I forgot to mention, oh, yeah, by the way, this is going to sound super weird as soon as we hit the open. And I forgot to mention that. And I'm like, okay, trying to post some things on social media. And the whole time my head's going, they're going, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on? Is it wrong? Is it wrong? Is it wrong? Looks like it's okay. So thank you for everybody out there. And thank you for joining us here. And thank you for the feedback. We always do appreciate it. Guys, let's start with the hitting coaches. David, you called it on one of them. David really called it long before it was announced. Les is back from fantasy camp. Let's actually start there. Les was down at fantasy camp, and Randy was down at fantasy camp. So that means a couple episodes of Kaufman Corner we had to record because we're going to be missing the guys and everything. So we had some stuff that when it played, you wouldn't realize that David Lesky called something about 5 days before it happened. But he did. But first, let's mention fantasy camp, Les. You were in charge, right?
Well, I'm the director of the week. There's a lot of people that are involved throughout the year to prepare.
But you're the boss. You are the man.
Yes.
Everything any fun that was had by anybody is directly Les Norman.
Before you answer, Les, do they have to call you sir?
Not at all. Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Well,
No,
you can make that change next year. It's fine.
I would not. No, I will not do that. No way.
How did it go though? How was fantasy camp?
No, it went extremely well. Like I said, there's a lot of people involved, and I've had the experience. I think it was like number 15 or 16 for me. So I've done it a lot as a coach, and then as an assistant, and now as the director of it and running the ops throughout the week. I mean, the weather was between 85 and 90 every single day, not a cloud in the sky. And it's right next to, I believe it's Luke Air Force Base, where the jets are flying over all day, where these guys are playing. And the best part about fantasy camp is, yes, they're playing baseball, but they're building friendships, they're creating memories. And a lot of these guys, it's the only time of a lot of the guys that repeat, that come back each year for however many years. That's the only time of year they're getting to see these guys, because they built these friendships, or they live at different parts of the country, or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, it was exhausting and fabulous all at the same time. I loved it, and great feedback. So yeah, I think it was fantastic.
Okay, good. That's awesome. Everyone I've ever known that's ever gone there said it's awesome, that it's a blast. They love it, getting to hang around with you guys that are, ex-big leaguers, and, play ball, and the camaraderie. It really is like it's fantasy camp. It's the fantasy of being a big leaguer for just a few days, and you really get to experience it. And people, I can just tell you, the best advertisement is, how many guys did you have down there?
We had 93 participants. Usually a full slate is 97, but we had 93 guys participating.
And I believe there were only like 9 new guys, right? Everybody else.
No. Usually we
right?
have usually we have a maybe a lower number, but I think we had 23 rookies this year.
Okay. But still, we're talking about 70 some odd people, went like, this was so awesome, I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
And I know my buddy Hurricane is there every single year. He is.
Yeah, he is. I mean, we've had one guy that this was his 19th.
Wow.
Another guy was his 17th, and we have a lot of guys that, when you get these patches on your uniform on the right side, that once you get to 4 years, you get a patch that has the number of that many that you've been. And once you get to 10, you're considered a Royals Fantasy Camp Hall of Famer. And so, we have a lot of guys down there that are Hall of Famers, and then they get to help induct. We had 4 Hall of Famers come in this year, which they get to induct them into the Hall of Fame at the banquet at the end. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing, pretty awesome. It's great to see, and I just love seeing those guys. And I see on the right, someone asked, "How did Randy look? Be honest, please." Randy looked great. He really did. We were talking about this a little bit before. Randy bought in, and he was happy and joyful, and I got to know Randy a little bit. He's got a great batting stance, I'm telling you. His timing is good. People might look at Randy and think, okay, maybe that looks a little bit like he's not a professional athlete. None of these guys are professional athletes. So, for his first time down there, and for maybe not playing baseball a lot in his life, Randy was exceptional. I mean, he really did a great job.
Yeah, that's good to hear. We're going to talk to Randy about it. And actually, in a couple of Sundays, we're going to bring Randy on, maybe a little bit of a surprise as well. But we'll talk about fantasy camp. But I can't stress, there's a shameless plug for it. I just think it's a great event. It's great that you guys all go down there. I know you guys all have fun. You guys being the ex-big leaguers, but I know everyone who takes part in it has a great time. So I can't recommend it highly enough. I've never, ever heard a negative thing. So kudos to the organization, all you guys, and everybody who goes out there. And the guys who go, obviously, are part of it, too. If a bunch of jackasses went, it would suck. But you get good people that are going down there. So that's great to hear. I'm glad everybody had a good time. All right, let's start with the hitting coaching ads. Now, David, I will ask you, Connor Dawson was a guy you mentioned days in advance that first of all, you mentioned it like more than a week in advance. You thought he was a good target, and then you broke the story. We retweeted you on the air on the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. What do you think? Dawson and Thames, Thames, right? What do you think? I'm old enough that a hitting coach was on my fantasy team. Okay, that's how old I am. But what do you?
To be fair, he didn't retire that long ago.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, relatively.
Yeah, but it still seems weird to see, listen, I go back. Walt Weiss is 61 and a first-time manager, and I had Walt Weiss on a fantasy team. So that'll tell you something. But what do you think?
Though, real quick, the Angels, or the Nationals, I think this is hilarious. They hired a 35-year-old general manager, a 32, 33-year-old manager, and they wear an AARP patch on their uniforms. So not fitting. Anyway, the hitting coaches. Yeah, no, I looked at Dawson from the start, partially because he's a local guy, right? I mean, you always the local talent. It's one of those things that you like to bring guys home. But also what they do with the Brewers and what the Brewers do on a year in and year out basis offensively is you look at their lineup and it's not impressive. I mean, I'm not they're all better than me. But it's Jackson Chourio, I think, will be a star. I don't think he's there yet. He's a really good player. Christian Yelich was a star, not anymore. Still a good player, but it's a bunch of solid guys. It's not like a star-studded lineup. And we saw it a little bit early in the year because the Royals played them in the second series, and so it was a little bit different because they weren't quite on track yet. But you watch Brewers games, and every game feels like just a grind for the pitcher because they put up great plate appearances, and I think that's a credit to the players. Yes, I don't want to say that you just ignore the players in this, but hitting coaches are important here too. And Connor Dawson's one of those guys. He's really buys into the swing decision. Matt Quatrero talks about that. Alex Zumwalt talks about that. The swing decision. And I was after they hired him, after it was official, or not, I guess it wasn't official yet, but after I'd heard that he was hired, I found a quote that he said, "A big part of it is our philosophy is swing at strikes, don't swing at balls." It's simple. It's not easy. It's simple. And I think that, and then obviously they get into some other stuff that's, they're not all strikes are created equal, hit on your terms in the first two strikes, and the third strike is the pitcher, all that stuff. But the Brewers do such a great job of that. But then the other thing that as I was talking to people after the hire, the thing that kept coming up, he's such a great communicator. He's so good at turning a complex idea into something simple. What did somebody say? It was he turned like a tortilla chip into a marshmallow, like a very sharp concept into something very soft and easy to digest. And I think that that's really important because hitting is so complex, especially today when you're facing 99 and then a slider that breaks 26 inches. Like it's so difficult that having somebody who's able to break down those complex ideas is huge. And so I really love the Connor Dawson hire. And it's not that he's not good with the swing and stuff like that, but his strengths are really there. And I think the Royals needed that.
Yeah. Les, how much does the fact that Marcus Thames is a former big leaguer play into the equation?
Well, I mean, I think it's sometimes harder to trust. If you're an established major leaguer, it's harder to trust a guy who maybe hasn't been there before. Like some rare exceptions, like Kevin Long, who was in the Royals organization as a minor leaguer. I came up with Kevin, played with him in AA and AAA a little bit. Didn't really play in the big leagues. However, had a great swing, and like David said, he was just a great communicator, and he really understood it, and he was passionate. Oftentimes it might take me a while as a hitter to really try to process what somebody's saying, but if they're really passionate about it and they show me that they really care about my swing, then I'm going to tend to listen to them a little bit more. And Kevin was really good at that. And so I think that's a big deal when you can communicate like that. And so a guy that's been there, and Marcus Thames has 10 years in the big leagues. He wasn't a superstar by any stretch. I think in 06, he hit 26 home runs, in 08 he hit 25, but he averaged a little more than 10 home runs a year. I think he hit 246 for his career, which is about average, but it's a good big league career, fully vested career. But when you can communicate like that and you earn the trust of people because you've been there, then that's a really good combination to have. So I think that's a good hire if he really does well with those two qualities, which it seems like he will.
Les, you wrote about Marcus Thames that the good news is he keeps getting hired, but the bad news is he keeps losing jobs. Like what are the pluses and negatives as you see it of Marcus Thames?
I mean, look, the one thing, the biggest thing is I did the same thing with Thames that I did with Dawson and went looking for articles about him, basically, because, people have done the work. Why would I do it? And there were a couple of things he said, and this goes back to when he was hired with the Angels in 23? I think it was. Yeah, 23. And there were two quotes. The first one, I read it the first time and I was like, oh. And it was, we want our guys to be aggressive in the zone. Pitchers are trying to get ahead, so I want your guys' mindset to be ready to go attack. If the ball's in your zone, be ready to go. And I was like, okay, whatever, I get it. Swing at strike, same thing. And then our mindset is going to be on the attack early. Don't let them steal strike one. Don't let them steal strike one. That stood out to me.
As a positive or negative?
As a positive.
Okay.
And it could be a negative. Like anything a hitting coach does can be a positive or a negative. It's how the hitter perceives and uses that information, right? It's not necessarily that it's like, some hitters are great with this, some hitters aren't great with this. But the thing that I found, after I read that, I went looking, and I remember we talked about this in May. The Royals saw a bunch of first pitch strikes. They didn't swing at the first pitch, and then they were super aggressive. The Royals were 0-1 on a called strike, more than any team in baseball last year. They were 0-1 on a called strike in the heart of the plate, second most in baseball last year, and 0-1 on a fastball in the heart of the plate, more than anybody in baseball last year. Called strike, not swing and miss. They took fastballs down the middle for the first pitch 691 times.
So frustrating.
Yeah. And I think so to just expand that message, I think the idea is not so much, hey, if it's a strike, we're going to swing. No. Sometimes, and we hear this all the time, sometimes the first pitch you see is the best pitch you're going to see. If you see a fastball down the middle on the first pitch of an at-bat, swing, hit it hard, trot. like that. That's the goal, right? It's not. I mean, I know the Royals talk. Alex Zumwalt, he was actually on MLB Network Radio this weekend. I don't know if you guys caught that, or maybe it was this week. I can't remember. And he talked about. He said, "Look, our idea is to hit the ball through the wall." And yeah, great. You got to swing at the right pitches to do that. And he made a really good point. It matters. You're only as good as the pitch you swing at, was something he said too. And I kind of get the idea. Like from listening to or reading about Marcus Thames, talking to people about Marcus Thames, Connor Dawson, and again, it's a very simple concept. This isn't new. They're not reinventing hitting, but we're going to swing at pitches we can hit through the wall, and we're not going to swing at the pitches we can't unless there's two strikes, and then you got to protect. But I think it works. And the other thing that I talked to a couple of people, and one person said, "Look, I don't know that he didn't say this quite as kindly, but I'm going to soften it a little bit." Basically, it was, I don't know that I like Marcus Thames as the main hitting coach. I love him as an assistant hitting coach. And so I think that's interesting, that the thought is he fits really well in a team, but isn't the guy who should be in charge of that team. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think so as well. Look, how's it all fit together? Like Zumwalt will be the lead dog, and everybody has their projects. I mean, we feel confident. Like back in your day, there was one hitting coach. This has become the standard. But the key is going to be for all three of them to work together and get the strength from each one and make the whole, the better than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, the confusing thing to me here is that, and again, I'm not trying to be negative. I like Connor Dawson and Marcus Thames as a combination, as what they bring to the table. I really think that they complement each other well in what their strengths are. What I don't understand yet, and again, it's not really a negative. I just don't know yet how Zumwalt is going to lead these two, because he had kind of two similar guys, and I don't know if he didn't like them. I don't know what we talked about it a little bit, what the details were as to why those two go, but he didn't go. And so I just don't know, what is Zumwalt going to be the guy that's going to say, okay, you have this project, and this is what we want to do. So I think that remains to be seen. So I'm just not sure how that's going to go. But I do like the fact that you got an analytics guy, you got a guy that has been there and understands that. But let's understand this whole thing. All three of them. It doesn't matter. David, you mentioned this. It is about communication, but it's not just about how you communicate an overall hitting philosophy, what you decide to deal with. It's not just about how Marcus Thames and Connor Dawson are able to communicate Zumwalt's hitting philosophy. It's the ability for all three of them to talk to players who, again, have different abilities, different egos, receive information differently. I can say the same thing to both of you, and you might take it a little bit differently. And so what I need to do as a hitting coach is I need to learn, how does Bobby Witt Jr. receive information on the philosophy we agree on? How does Pasquantino? How does Salvy? How does Garcia? How does whoever because you have to learn the psychological and almost therapist part of being a hitting coach, no matter which one of those three that you are, because again, they're going to receive it different. They're going to, how do they receive it after a long road trip? How do they receive it when they're 0 for their last 12? How do they receive it when they're hot? And do you back off, or do they want you to continue? How do they receive it when they're tired? I mean, there's so many intricate details that all three of these guys have to learn. And again, Zumwalt has been there already. He has to be able to see if they can communicate that. I think Marcus Thames can. But again, when it's two new people coming in, you've got to learn all these players. And even if you have experience learning players, you don't have experience learning these players. And so communicating different personalities and styles and how they receive it is going to be key to whether this is successful or not.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we want to get into Salvador Perez contract. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Frontier Justice.
This episode of Kaufman Corner is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee's Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
Green Light Dispensary, voted Kansas City's best dispensary and your go-to for quick, convenient service. With 4 locations across the Kansas City area, we're never far away. Our drive-through and express windows make it easy to get in, get out, and get on with your day. Our award-winning service is powered by a team of experts dedicated to making your experience seamless and enjoyable. It's no wonder we've been voted the best. Convenient locations, fast service, knowledgeable staff. That's the Green Light difference. Visit us today.
This isn't just any burger run. This is a burger run for Whataburger Sweet and Spicy Bacon Burger. 2 fresh all-beef patties with melty cheese, grilled onions, crispy bacon, and sweet and spicy pepper sauce. One for you, one for him, and one for your unofficial roommate, Brad. Always order an extra. You know, for Brad. The all-time favorite sweet and spicy bacon burger from Whataburger. Just like you like it.
All right, let's talk about Salvador Perez. 2-year deal worth $25 million. Some early reports had this being 2 years on the back end of the 13.5, and it's not. It replaces the 13.5. A couple things I think are interesting, at least the reports that I was reading. There's a $7 million signing bonus and some deferred money. It looks like he gets $7 million up front, then a $6.5 million salary this year. So he's getting the same $13.5 million he was going to get, but he gets $7 million right now. Okay. Money in hand is always better than money you're going to get later. And then it's only a $6.5 million salary next year with
so actually hang later. On. I looked at COTS, which is
what is COTS
right.
Okay.
COTS has it. This is interesting because I'd heard that too. 2 years, 25. That's all right. 7 million signing bonus. Yes. But paid 1.4 million per year from 2030 to 2034. And then the 2.5 million in each year is deferred.
That's the $7 million that he's not getting. Well, that would make
right that
lower.
It's all deferred. The signing bonus doesn't even start till 2030.
Okay.
So he's not even, which I mean,
why is that called a signing bonus? To me, a signing bonus you get when you sign. Am I the only one?
Well, they assume he'll sign autographs during those years. And so it's a signing bonus. Come on, let's give him, it doesn't really matter for our purposes, but you're right. 6.5 million in 2025 or 2026.
And what is it in 27 then?
Same thing, because it's the same 2.5 million deferred. It's bizarre to defer 2.5 million and pay it over multiple years.
But so it sounds like 12 million is basically deferred of the 25.
Yeah,
because the signing bonus is deferred.
It's all deferred, which is you're right. Why is the signing bonus? Just put it in the contract and defer it. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to call over there.
It's
and ask
tax purposes probably.
Dang it. I should have had my $114,000 I made in 1996 deferred till right now. Doggone it.
Yeah,
you'd be raking in the residuals.
now you're getting it, Les. Now you're getting it. But listen, did they get it right, Les? Is this the right move?
I mean, if he signed the contract, I mean, again, they had the 1 year plus the buyout option, and he's taking I believe he's taking less money in the front, but he's getting a year guaranteed in there. And I think Salvy wants to stay a Royal, and this most likely guarantees he's a Royal his whole career. And I think that's kind of what what he wanted to do. So monetarily, maybe, but overall, I don't think that as long as Salvy's been playing, I don't think that Salvy probably wanted to take a 1-year deal to another team that might have paid him a little or a lot more money. I don't think that money is an issue for Salvy at this point. I mean, the Royals back in the day didn't have to restructure his contract and did, and paid him what his production was worth and who the person that he was. And so I think for Salvy and his personality, not in the business side, but just for Salvy and his personality and to want to be a Royal and to what this relationship has meant, I think it was perfect for him.
Yeah. Does this mean it's only 2 years in the door? We've got his exit strategy here. Is that what you take from this, David? Or no, it's 2 years and check back and, listen, if he hits 30 home runs in 2 years, they'll sign him again. But it does kind of feel like, they could have put another one on here and just said, it's, you only get it if you play, you retire whenever you want. And
yeah,
it feels like this is the distance.
I agree in the fact, I guess really the point is 2030 is because that's when the deferred payment starts. So maybe that's the point. And they say, okay, we're going to go through 2029 and then we're going to pay you to not play for us for a while. I don't know. I do think it's interesting. We talked about his contract on your show in maybe September. And I mentioned Mitch Garver, 2 years, $24 million. And I said, so maybe they do 2 and 30, give him a little extra. You were like, oh no, it's going to be more. We're both way off. They ended up way closer to the Mitch Garver deal, which I'm a little bit surprised at how cheap it was. Even given the fact that he didn't have outside of the home runs and RBIs, he didn't have a great average on base season, which on base is never great for him. But I kind of see maybe this is the end. I don't. You're right. I think he gets through 2027 and he's putting up 30 and 100 again. Maybe they do another 2 and 25 and maybe they just tack on to the deferred payments. I don't know, but it's pretty. I think it would be a good idea over the next couple of seasons that if you haven't seen Salvador Perez play or you want to see him play, maybe get it in over these next 2 years because you might not have much more chance.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think the numbers show there was a little bit of a hometown discount because I think a 30 home run hitting catcher on the open market, like Salvador Perez, we grade him as batting fourth. And the reality is Salvador Perez at this point in his career, if the Royals didn't have the worst offensive outfield in baseball, he'd be batting 6th or 7th. And you'd be like, what a stick in the lineup from behind the dish. You're getting 30 home runs, get to the bottom of the order. Boy, you can't rest against this lineup. I think part of the view of Salvador Perez is because he's having to bat so high in this order. And at this point in his career, he's not being asked to do that. The Royals have to get better in front of him so they can drop him down a little bit in that lineup. And then I think all of this looks a lot better when it's all said and done. Everybody wanted Salvy here. Salvy's going to be here. The only thing I'll add is the key is going to be him buying into the right playing structure. And I will point out, Jeff Passan, we mentioned a couple of times, Jeff, friend of the podcast, friend of the program, and ESPN's, if you got to know who Jeff Passan is, if I'm watching this podcast. But, he kind of pushed back and said, I don't know that you want Salvy playing less. Like, this is what he's done. He hit 30 home runs. I'm like, I think he could hit 30 home runs. We've talked about it a lot. We all tend to agree that a little bit less playing time for Salvy gets a fresher Salvy. I think you could still get 30 home runs and the on base could come up. That's going to be, and I think Carter Jensen needs to play. So it'll be interesting to see. This isn't like my theory was maybe you overpay a little bit to get him to buy you, pay him more to play less, right? And be happy about it and sell it. We'll see if that ends up being part of the equation.
Well, so one other thing that I think is interesting that Salvy defensively, and I know the catching part is for his bat, not to catch less, but his issue defensively is he doesn't block well anymore and he doesn't frame well. Well, the framing is not going away, but it's getting mitigated a little bit. And he still throws exceptionally well. So they're actually, just from a value perspective, him behind the plate with the ABS, with the challenge system coming next season, that helps a lot, I think, for him. So I do think it actually adds some value to him that he doesn't have to frame as well because he's not good at it. But again, I know the point of him not catching is not because we don't like him behind the plate. It's because we like him better in the batter's box fresh. Yeah. But I do think there's some value that he might add by not having to be as strong in an area that is becoming unnecessary as we get more and more technology.
Let's talk about the rookie of the year voting. Noah Cameron comes in fourth. Certainly congratulations, Noah Cameron, for being one of the top guys. But I got to be honest, I got no problem with Nick Kurtz winning it, but I do have a problem with Noah Cameron being fourth. Like, what are we using? It seems like this has become a WAR award, but he's second in WAR amongst all the guys that are in this mix, and he's fourth. It's the one thing that I can point to is it seems to be more about projecting who's going to be, or as much about projecting who's going to be the best big leaguer. I think people look at Noah Cameron stuff and say it's not overwhelming, and this was based upon, well, we think these other guys, Jack Wilson, who am I forgetting?
Roman Anthony.
And Roman Anthony are going to be better players down the road. So we want to make sure that our vote reflects who ended up being the best player. Like, they don't want to give Bob Hamlin or Angel Baroa the award, right? Even though they may have been the best rookie, it's the rookie of the year, not who will have the best career. This is frustrating to me, Les, that he didn't. I'm not screaming and yelling mad, but I don't care what the rules are. Let's just make sure we're all playing by it. It seems like the MVP award is all about the WAR, but the Rookie of the Year award is the who projecting the best prospect to the future.
Yeah, and I think that for some reason, the Rookie of the Year award seems to slant toward a lot more the offensive side of the, which is fine. I get it. And I think, first of all, it's an honor that he's even in the top 5, but I agree with you. Maybe it should have been 2 or 3. Nick Kurtz probably deserved to win it, and that's great. Soren, you had mentioned people say that he doesn't have overpowering stuff. I want to know who those people are, because again, you had a sub-3 earned run average. He started in the minor leagues, right? I mean, at the beginning of the season, and if he doesn't have overpowering stuff, the only thing you're looking at then is the number of losses that he had, which again, look at Paul Skeens winning the Cy Young, who was 10-10.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then does Paul Skeens not deserve to win the Cy Young if that's what you're talking about? And so, yes, I think there was a little bit of a disrespectful situation there, because again, I know he's not Paul Skeens, but Paul Skeens started the minor leagues, and in that same year, he started the All-Star game, unless I'm wrong. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So, I think there's some disrespect there. I don't know what they're necessarily looking at, but the Noah Cameron that I was watching, even though he doesn't throw 98, he's got a massive curveball, and his motion is so deceptive. I've said it on the podcast here that he makes 91 look like 96, 97. His curveball adds velocity, the mystique of velocity to his fastball. He pitched corners really, really well. You can say, well, he had this many wins, but he also had this many losses. Well, you don't have that many losses and have a 2.99 earned run average if you had good run support in those losses. And so he pitched really well, and I'm just not sure what they were seeing in that, but I think he probably should have been 2, 3 at the lowest, but probably 2. So I'll swing to the positive side and say, hey, it's a great honor. I think we're going to have great things to see from Noah Cameron, but should have been a little bit higher.
Jacob Wilson had a WAR of 3.1 for Roman Anthony, 3.8 for Noah Cameron. I'm using the Baseball Reference one. Nick Kurtz, no one argues with that, 5.4 on it. It's just, to me, he played on a contending team, right? Like, so don't tell me that the A's were so much better because of, I think I called him his dad, Jacob Wilson. I think I called him Jack the first time. But, I think, and Roman Anthony was everyone's darling because he was the number 1 prospect when he was called up. But Noah Cameron was there. Start in, start out. He was fantastic. And he never did get the buzz. And I don't understand. It can only come back to the fact that, he didn't get the hype, David, that he was going to be a star. And so then, therefore, I didn't write about him before the season began. Therefore, he can't be that high on my ballot.
Did you see MLB Pipeline? And this is a different conversation. They had their top 40. How do they put it? It was the top 40 rookies, and they're like impactful down in the future. So it wasn't like the 2025 top rookies, but it was how the 2025 rookies would be down the road. He wasn't in the top 40 of their list. He did not make the. I mean, come on, look, I've been hey, let's pump the brakes on him as a top of the rotation starter. I know what the ERA is. He's probably more of a 3, 4, maybe a 5. Like, I've been that guy, and I stand by that. I do, because I think that he's not a top of the rotation starter. But come on. I mean, to have a guy, if you put up a sub 3 ERA in the big leagues, I'm looking right now because I can't remember, 138 in the third innings. That is not nothing. And I think that, Roman Anthony, I would take Nick Kurtz over Cameron moving forward. I would take Jacob Wilson moving forward. You did it to me too. I mean, I called him Jack. I would take Roman Anthony moving forward.
Yeah.
I would even take who is it? I'd take Jack Leiter probably. Luke Keeschel maybe. I don't know. Some of the guys who finished behind him. But the award is what you did this year. The award isn't what your fielding independent pitching is. The award is based on the actual results that you put up. And it's like, if you want to evaluate down the road, okay, whatever. But he put up a 2.99 ERA in the big leagues. Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, and I know this is not what the award is about, but the Royals pitching staff was decimated this year. Mm-hmm. Without Noah Cameron, do they win 80 games? 78 games?
It's a great call.
I don't know.
And in September, they were 1 game out. I mean, they were in this fight all the way to the last.
Because Noah Cameron kept them alive, and he was one of the handful. So, yeah, I agree. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And look, he finished 4th. It's not like we're talking about him finishing 16th. And the Royals do have another guy on the team who finished 4th in the Rookie of the Year vote. If
Bob Witt Jr.
Yeah, if you've heard of him, he plays shortstop, for those who don't know. And so, look, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a big career and it's whatever, but Bobby Witt Jr. deserved to finish 4th that year. He was probably the 4th best rookie. I think Noah Cameron was 2nd or 3rd best. And we're arguing over semantics at this point, but it just seems silly to me. The Rookie of the Year is about what you did, not what you're going to do.
I feel like there's an underlying factor in this, guys, that unless Salvy is a superstar, Bobby Witt Jr. obviously is a superstar, but I feel like in Kansas City, if you don't fit that mold and they don't preseason you, or you're just not that first round pick or have done what Salvy does, you're just not going to get the consideration, because the penalty is that you play for Kansas City. And if you're seemingly marginal or start the year in the minor leagues, you don't get the national attention that somebody like a Paul Skeens would.
It is interesting, the 4th place from Bobby Witt Jr. Julio Rodriguez won the award. He had the highest WAR of the rookies that finished in the top 6, 6.2. Then came Adley Rutschman with a 5.4. Then Stephen Kwan was 3rd with a 5.7. Bobby, because his defense was so bad that rookie year, was a 0.9. And then Jeremy Pena was a 5.0. And there was a real drop-off as far as, where the points went. 148 for Rodriguez, Rutschman 68.44 for Kwan, 7 for Bobby Witt Jr. But if you were projecting, then Bobby should have been higher, right? Because you would have projected Bobby Witt to be certainly ahead of Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan's been a fabulous player, but the pedigree of Bobby Witt was higher. That's what I'm saying. I don't care what the rules are. Let's just all play by him and set the standard of what it's going to be.
But I also think, and I've thought this for a long time, that there is, and I don't, this is not a knock on anybody, but the national prospect writers, I think there is a bias. And the Royals, they earned their bias. They did. I think teams do earn that. But I believe that if you're looking at a prospect list and you go Royal minus half a point, I think you do it subconsciously. And I think 15 years ago, Royal plus half a point. Like that was because they were seen as a great system. And right now it's Dodger plus half a point.
Yeah.
Brewer plus half a point. Royal minus half a point. Angel minus half a point. Because I talked to somebody with another organization, and this was last year when the rankings came out. I think it was Baseball America's organizational rankings, and the Royals were like 24 or whatever they were. And I was talking to somebody who I knew from college, who was a scout with another organization. He goes, "We have them like 12th." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Do other people, like other people in the baseball world, or they go, well, I've talked to people who have them like 16th, some have them 23rd. But like, I do think that there is a bias that if you are right now, if you're a Royal, you get dinged. In 5 years, maybe you get elevated because you're a Royal. It's there. I believe the prospect rankings are always a couple years behind the way a system turns, because it's human nature. I'm not saying this that they're bad people. It's just the way the mind works. But I do think that's part of it.
Well, a big chunk of the guys, most of the guys that are going to get to the big leagues, maybe not your stars, but most of them are not going to be in those rankings. They're not going to be in the top 100, top couple hundred. I do appreciate that they're now ranking 250, 400, and getting, people have a demand for like, hey, you're just going the top 100. You keep missing on all these guys.
You can't even imagine.
Yeah, I have so much respect for anybody who tries to put that together. I mean, we had Jason Cooper on last Sunday, and I was like, oh, he got a little downtime, and he was going through what his week was. I'm like, no downtime.
But the other thing too, I think is interesting with the top 100. Like somebody once told me, look, 1 through 50 or 1 through 50 generally, but 50 to 100 could easily be 120 to 170. Like it's all about your personal opinion. So if a guy's number 82, okay, he could be number 53 really, or he could be number 171 really. It's just there's when you get to a certain point, there's too much variance.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I do think listen. I'm biased. I want to see Noah Cameron finish higher. I think he's going to be better than whatever it is they're projecting him for, and that's what he needs to do. It's just go out and prove him wrong when it's all said and done. We want to talk about Mason Black, a kind of under the radar acquisition that the Royals made. We'll get into the trade rumors as well after you hear from our friends at Italian Delight. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. By the way, a quick note, that is our buddy Renee throwing the pizza dough up in the air that you see in the chat room. I had somebody ask, is that Renee that's in there? Yeah, that's him. He's a regular. He's a regular viewer, consumer here of the podcast, and of course the fine owner of Italian Delight. So go see him. Lunch special starting at under $10. It's insane. He needs to raise his prices. So go before he wakes up and take advantage of his daily $10 lunch specials. Let's talk about Mason Black. Oh, by the way, taking orders for the holidays too. He wanted me to mention that. So if you got a holiday party or event, they cater, do everything. They've got these new fabulous pizza ovens because I've tripled my capacity. We're ready for your holiday party. So you can order ItalianDelightKS.com. Let's talk about Mason Black. Another pitcher. Like they go out, they need a bat. And what do? David, they go get a pitcher. What do you think of the acquisition of Mason Black?
They're converting him to out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
out.
When the news first hit, my first thought was, okay, it's organizational depth. This is going to allow them to non-tender Bailey Falter. That deadline is a week from tomorrow? Is the 21st, I think. So we'll know a lot more about that coming up in the next 10 days or so. But I thought that, and then JJ made some comments, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, talking about how they might see him as a reliever and that might be his path. And I think what's interesting about Mason Black, he was a pretty highly regarded prospect. I mean, not crazy. I talked about how the prospect rankings are a little bit skewed, but I think the organizational rankings are interesting. He was in the top 10 for the Giants for the last 3 years. And pitched mostly in the minors this season. The thing that I found I was a little bit concerned about is, why does the velocity go down? Because every scouting report you read is he's 93 to 96. He touches 98, 99. He averaged 92.4 in the big leagues and 92.9 in the minors. So where did that velocity go? So I question that. But the fastball, I think the fastball looks like it could be a really good pitch. It's got some good vertical movement. His sweeper, his cutter, they all get whiffs. I like I like the concept of Mason Black. Will it work? I don't know, but I think it's smart to acquire a lot of Mason Blacks. And you say, okay, this one didn't pan out, but this one we turned into a number 4 starter. This one we turned into a number 2 starter. This one we turned into our 7th inning guy. And I think that you have to keep swinging at that. And I think you have to hope that your pitching development team, and we didn't even talk about this, but the Royals lost Zach Bove. So let's see what that looks like down the road. I don't know. We don't know yet. But I like the idea of bringing in this kind of depth. At worst, you got a number 7, 8 starter. And we saw what they needed. They needed more guys who could start in the big leagues. And Mason Black has not been good in the big leagues, but he has the pedigree. I think he has pretty good stuff. I think he's a guy who, if you stuff him in Omaha, he's got an option, which is different than Bailey Falter. Also, that if and when you need a starter, you don't have to. I'll say this again. And we said this about other guys. You don't have to sign Rich Hill or Dallas Keuchel. You have a legitimate young pitcher who could be something versus somebody who we know won't ever be something again because they're past their prime.
Logan Martin is who they traded, a 24-year-old from high A ball. They're getting 25-year-old Mason Black. He will be 26 pretty soon, who's already pitched in the big leagues for a little touch for each of the last 2 seasons, so that they're getting a guy who got there a lot faster than certainly what they gave up. Less, it does feel kind of like this is another one of their projects. I mean, I agree with David because of what they gave up. This is not Cole Reagans. It's not Ryan Bergert. It's not Stephen Kolek. But with the success that those 3 guys have had, exceeding the expectations that anybody thought they would get from them, the Royals would get from them, you feel like whatever the projection is, I'm sitting there going, well, he'll be better than whatever people think. Right? Like that's kind of where we've gotten when it comes to their ability to develop pitching.
Right. And I think the Royals see Mason Black as maybe some of the worst is behind him. I mean, he had a +6. I think he had 9 starts in the big leagues and he had a +6 earned run average. And then in the minor leagues and AAA, he was about a 5.5 around there. And so I think that maybe the gurus see him as a project that they can really work with, and they see good potential in him at his age. And if it's not injury related, I think that 92.4 average velocity, they probably see as more of a mechanical issue that they can correct. And they've done that with other pitchers as well. And so I think that's one positive. Another positive, I think, with this is that in case this pitching staff, if there's more injuries again, and maybe they're protecting themselves. I mean, if Cole Reagans comes back and the rest didn't help, and if Bubic isn't better, and they get one of the other guys hurt, that they need a little bit of depth. That's another positive thing. But then also you bolster the pitching side of the organization, because eventually, and maybe sooner than later, the Royals are going to have to give up a big pitcher to get a big outfielder. And that's kind of the big need right now. Now, is Mason Black just the guy to do that? No. It leads me to believe that they're going to do this again soon and maybe package a couple guys. And so I think that's kind of the big key. That's kind of my sniffer says that's what it's really going to be. They're building that up so they can trade for that outfielder. I'm hoping that that's the case. And so I'm going to look at it positively in 3 of those areas, and hopefully that's what happens.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. That's what this smells like, is that they're deepening the pitching because they know they're working on some other pitching that they're going to be that they're going to be moving, or they're working on some bats and they're going to be moving some of their other pitching to go out and acquire those bats.
Yeah.
That I think you nailed it on that one. That's exactly what I think is coming there. Where are we on the trade front, David? Rumors of the Red Sox and Angels, we've been hearing that, going back to last year at the trade deadline. I know the Cardinals popped up as something. I think today there was some rumblings about the Cardinals, Lisa, or maybe yesterday, and I read about it today. Where do you think we are as far as the Royals getting something done as far as getting a bat into this lineup?
Well, I think they have to, for obvious reasons on the field. But I also think they sort of have put themselves into a spot where they have to, because they've talked about it. And it's the same thing with payroll. We talk about that. Why would they? Oh, we're gonna keep payroll where we are, because there's no benefit to saying we're gonna raise payroll by $20 million. When you start talking about we're gonna go get an outfield bat, you're gonna go get an outfield bat. Like, it's just the reality is you're going to, and you're gonna overpay if you have to. Last year they chose not to overpay, And honestly, the options they didn't play well. So it worked out pretty well in not having a contract on the books they don't want. Didn't work out pretty well for the offense, but they're going to have to go do it. And I think they're going to. I don't know how close it is. Obviously, the GM meetings end today, I think. So it'll probably get a little quiet now for when the winter meetings start, like 3 weeks, whatever it is. So it'll be a little quiet until then. Thanksgiving always slows down too. But there will not be a day between now and like mid-December that it would surprise me if we get the press release that the Royals have acquired X from X, because it's going to happen. It's just going to. And I think it's going to be via trade because the free agent market kind of stinks in the market they want to play in that range, that price range. And so I don't know if it'll be Angels or Red Sox. I don't know if it'll be Cardinals. Brendan Donovan makes a lot of sense to me for the Royals, but he makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams, which means the price goes up. But I mean, there are guys out there. There are a lot of teams looking for outfielders, but there are a lot of outfielders to be traded. So I think it'll happen sometime soon.
I hate to say this, but when I look around, there's a lot of veteran pitching available in free agency. So why would you trade for pitching? And Les, I hate to say this, but we just talked about Noah Cameron. I think Noah Cameron's the guy they may be moving, right? For all the reasons we talked about. Well, he doesn't have the high end upside. But I think if you're trading and not going out and signing any one of a number of starting pitchers that are available, then to me, you're looking for costly control. And unless I'm wrong and somebody says, I believe Chris Bubic is healthy, I just don't know how you could do that from going and watching one of his workouts, wherever he's working out this offseason and fully. The fact that he didn't get back on the mound, I think has him discounted. The Royals don't feel that way, at least the conversations I've had. But if it's Noah Cameron, if it's Chris Bubic, to me, they're the two most likely candidates to be moved. You know, are you okay with that if that's what it takes to get a bat in here?
Guys, I can't tell you how bad. I mean, I've said it so much in this podcast that I have watched a gaping vacuum of a corner outfield power bat in the Royals organization that has been there consistently, that has performed. So at this point, aside from like a Bobby Witt Jr. or maybe even Vinny Salvy, I trade anybody. And so, yeah, I feel like Cameron, Bubic, I think
trade you.
Yeah, I'll take it. I can do this podcast from California. I don't care. Trade me. So yeah, I think that those two are.
Well, you'd be on Halo Corner then. Just FYI, it's all part of the deal, unfortunately.
Well, I want to stay with you guys, so I'll still do whatever it takes. Regardless, I think that those two pitchers are kind of the frontline guys, young enough, good enough. As long as Bubic is healthy, which they'll find out. Hopefully, he is. I'm sure he is. So yeah, I would put them in there. And again, it takes me back to the Mason Black trade, that they're trying to build their depth to do something that you're talking about there.
Yeah. David, what do you think? Who's it going to be?
I mean,
you said you won't be surprised if they're saying they've traded for X. Who do you think they've traded away?
Well, I think to answer your question and go back to the first point is the difference between a free agent starter and what the Royals can offer is they can offer 6 years of control with Noah Cameron, and they can offer ace upside with Chris Bubic. But ace upside without having to pay 5 years and $100 million, 5 years and $150 million. And so I think there is value in being able to be very cost controlled for some teams at least. And so I think it's one of those two guys. I think that those are the ones who make sense. I don't see a scenario where they move Michael Wacha. And I also don't think he brings back a big bat. Seth Lugo, I don't think you can trade him the way his season finished. And you wouldn't anyway. If you traded him after you signed on that contract, you're never signing another guy to a contract. It's just not going to happen. So it's bad business. And I don't think they're trading Cole Reagans because they know, just like we do, that if they want to win a World Series, they need a Cole Reagans. I mean, it doesn't have to be him, but you can't win a World Series without an ace, I don't think. It's just tough to get through the playoffs without it. So I think it's Cameron or Bubic. I don't know who it'll be, but I think one of those guys. Now, the other thing the Royals have that other teams don't is catching depth in the minors and high-end catching depth. Blake Mitchell is very well regarded. Ramon Ramirez is way better regarded than I think the prospect rankings indicate. I've talked to two people from two different teams who were like, yeah, we'd take him over Mitchell, and we love Mitchell. Okay. So that catching prospects there's not a lot of them, and not a lot of really good ones. And the Royals have 2 of them that I think they can sweeten a deal with. So that's how they get it done. I think if they're going to get it done.
Yeah. We'll see if they do get it done. Gleyber Torres. I bring this up. We'll finish with this. Jeff Passan mentioned Gleyber Torres. Kylie McDaniel did a projection of what he thinks the contracts will be for, I think it's the top 50 free agents, 16, and he ranked them by total dollars of what they get, not necessarily what he thinks their production will be. Gleyber Torres getting 3 for $57 million. I bring this up because Jeff Passan, I think, probably floats things that he's kind of hearing, right? I don't think he's like just grabbed it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he went, look, you tried Jonathan India, it didn't work. Let's replace this. If it's Gleyber Torres, Les, if that's what they had, a second baseman, at least what is a second baseman right now, and not an outfield bat. Are you okay if that happens, or does Passan need to get a clue?
I would be okay with it in the sense of a second base. We're actually getting a second baseman to play second base instead of always having to have the conversation, who can you switch, who get this free agent guy. Well, he's played second base, but he also plays outfield. This is kind of my second thing besides corner outfield. Now it's time to get a second baseman. And again, Soren, I follow you. If not him, then who? I understand that that's in the back of my mind. I'm just not a big Gleyber Torres fan. I mean, I think he's a decent player. I'm not saying we need to get an all-star caliber guy right now, but I mean, he's a guy that seems a little bit brash. You have to be that way a little bit, but just hearing him talk, when a guy, I think when he was with the Yankees, he was a guy that got offended when they played somebody else at second base, and he was complaining publicly, and he wasn't hitting very well at the time. Now, again, he's a big league player. He's a good player. Kansas City just doesn't seem like a controversial city and a team that has a fit for that. So if he's not that guy, and I'm missing that, then I would be fine with it. But if he is that guy, I just think that could kind of rock the boat in a team that's a little bit not that. And so maybe that's not the analytical side I should be, but I'm just a little bit skeptical in Gleyber Torres. But who knows?
Yeah. How about you, David? I think Les makes a great point about what the chemistry fit would be, because I think the chemistry has been an important part of why this team has had the success it's had, whatever level you want to describe that as, over the last couple of years. What do you see in Gleyber Torres?
I'm going to put this the right way. Gleyber Torres makes the 2026 Royals better. And I don't think that's a doubt. I mean, you look at on-base percentage by the year, 358 this past year, 330, 347, 310 and 22, not a great year. 331, 356. He's going to get on base. He works walks. He doesn't strike out a ton, Here's my problem. He had a qualifying offer. I don't want to give up the Royals' second-round pick, because it will be the second-round pick, because they have a competitive balance pick. I don't think that's been announced which one yet, but they'll have a first-round pick. I think they'll be comp A this year, and then second round. I don't want to give up a second-round pick to give Gleyber Torres $60 million. I just don't. And he's 28 years old?
He'll be 29 next year.
He'll be 29, yeah. He's in the 22nd percentile in sprint speed. When you're there at 29, where are you at 32? I mean, also, he's a bad defender at second base. And you can't put him, well, I should say, let me back off that. I was going to say you can't put him elsewhere because he doesn't throw very well. I think there's some, in the arm strength rankings, I think there's some bias against second basemen because they never have to make the throws. They never get rated. So I'll back off that, I was about to say. But he doesn't have good range. He's not a good defender. Also, are you going to give $60 million? And I know on-base percentage is important. I love on-base percentage. He hasn't slugged 400 in 2 years. And go back to 2020. Here are his slugging percentages: 368, 366, 451, 453, 378, 387. I don't see that as a difference maker. I know you can plug him at the top of the lineup and call it good, but you got another plotter on the bases. You got a guy who can't defend, and he's not going to hit the ball over the wall. I know they need on-base percentage, but I would not. If Gleyber Torres was available for what he was last season, no qualifying offer, 1 year, $15 million, all day long. But for 3 and 60, 4 and 65, whatever it ends up being, and a draft pick, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see the fit either. And I think if they did do it, it means, okay, you're sending they made it pretty clear the exit interviews that Jonathan India is not going to the outfield, and it didn't sound like they're getting away from Jonathan India. So, like, where does Jonathan India fit in this mix when you've added Carter Jensen to the catching, which bumps seemingly Salvy to more games at DH, and you're covering that up, but it looks like you're talking about Jack Caglione in one spot and hopefully a trade, or are we talking about Massey out in another outfield spot, that's where you're going to go and you're just going to be all in that Massey and Caglione are going to turn the corner and that's where the production's going to go? I don't know. It doesn't seem like a fit, but I bring it up because Jeff Passan brought it up and he's the best in the business. So if he floated it to me, he's probably hearing some kind of rumblings out there for it. Listen, we can tell you about the great rumblings that you hear in your stomach. Our friends at Whataburger can solve that. They're open 24 hours a day, serving breakfast 11 a to 11 p. Our friends at Italian Delight can help you out. The first restaurant to bring true New York style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. Don't forget, they are taking your holiday orders. Order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. You got a big party, got a big event, or you just want to cater your family's holiday events. Italian Delight has you covered. Also by our friends at Northland Injury Law for 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 injury lawyer. That's our friends at Northland Injury Law, and by our friends at Greenlight, 15 locations around Missouri. More on the way. Your cannabis needs, Greenlight has you covered. And of course, Frontier Justice. Les is a client. If you are a hunter, if you're into shooting, their experts can help you out at Frontier Justice. 3 locations to serve you. For David Lesky from Inside the Crown, for Les Norman from Breaking the Norm, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.